I'd also like to cover the scenario was what happens when you design a package that is larger than the page that you can print on. Normally what you would do here is go to the next size piece of paper. So in this case, this is 8.5 by 11. I could probably do this on 11 by 17. Yeah, easily, because this would be your 11 and then 17 here. So that wouldn't be a problem. But eventually you're going to get to a point with certain packages that you just can't fit the whole entire thing on one page. So when you go to get it printed commercially, if you're working for a client, of course you work with the printer and they can generally print quite large, usually, 30, 40 inches, not a problem. But you're still going to need to mock it up for your client. So what typically you do is instead of having the one glue joint, easier to show here, like this was our glue joint here, you would just break it somewhere in the middle and put another glue joint where you could still put the package together. And in fact, what's often the easiest way to do is just repeat a whole entire panel. And in that way, what happens is you just end up with one panel that's double thickness. And usually if you put it in the back, you can't tell. So what I might do is just recreate this design, switch the front and the back around. I'd have to test that out to make sure it didn't interfere with any of the side graphics and so on. But assuming this works, well, there's always a way to make it work. This would be where I would make the second part of the design. So what I would do in this case is I would need a new artboard. So I just grab the artboard tool, option drag down here, give myself a good distance. Then I'm just going to start getting rid of the things that I don't need from this artboard. So you can go from everything from the top above, and on this one I can get rid of, so basically we're going for an overlap here and here, so on this one I can get rid of everything that says bottom and below. Just have to make some adjustments here. And of course, if this was a final, I'd make sure that everything was exactly 1/8 of an inch bleeds. So I'll pause this and show you what I end up with in a minute. Okay, and once we get rid of all the parts that we need here, we can just move things so we get a better printout. Move this one up. But I think at this point, you get the idea now. We would just do two separate printouts, put this together as a test, and then next time around, repeat the steps that we did previously to get rid of the black lines. But when we print this, instead of, well, in addition to this glue flap being part of the thing that holds it together, we'd also have this overlap of the back. And in fact, we would probably want to do without. We could try it both ways, but there's no sense having the flap doubled up. So in that case, we'd probably get rid of this whole entire part here as well. Yeah, and then I think that would do it. Probably what would happen here when these are cut out is on the back side of the piece that's labeled as back is where you would put the glue. Then you would overlap it onto this piece, being careful to keep this nice clean edge here. And then when you fold everything, should line up nicely, and then you also put glue along here, and it should be the same as the other procedures that you were following. Now that's not to say that that's the only way or even the best way. When you test this out, you may find that it makes more sense to use one of these side panels because A, they're smaller, or when I say side panels, I mean, say for example, the one labeled bottom or top might work better. And then if you run out of room this way, which is pretty unlikely if you have access to big paper, I mean, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to comp up something that's larger than, like, say, 17 inches long. But let's say you get right on the edge where there's just not quite enough. You could double up And when I say double up, I mean do some overlapping with the flaps. In fact, you could make the flap totally on a separate piece of paper and then have it just go down inside a little bit. That's something that probably wouldn't be noticed. The thicker the paper, the less likely you are to notice that something is glued behind it. But if it does draw attention to itself, then you're just going to have to look to be able to go all the way down to the bottom so that it doesn't show up when the package is comped.